Welcome back to Sticks and Strings. I'm Naomi.
I'm Beth.
I'm Eve.
And thanks for sticking with us last week. And we went long.
And it's April.
Beginning of April. It's been a cold April week.
Yeah. Last week we were like 90s, and this week I'm like, I need a coat.
I know. It was so cold in the city.
Yeah, we went to get groceries last night, and the wind was blowing at the store. It was cold.
Yeah.
Usually we get cold in the store because it's always an ice box in there.
It was. We even had a little bit of like sprinkle of rain. And
it was very cloudy. I was wondering it because it was supposed to rain, but I don't guess it rained here.
Yeah,
not here.
It was so funny. This morning I went to get eggs, and I stopped for gas, and there was a couple that had come out of the little convenience store, and they were gassing up the car right in front of me. And she was dressed in like kind of culottes, I guess you could call them, short but wide pants and sandals and a sleeveless shirt. And he had on shorts and a sweatshirt hoodie and a bright pink knit cap and hat, And I was like, you don't go together, but it's usually the opposite, right? Yeah. Usually the guy's like, I'm not cold. It was just funny. That was funny. So I'm going first. I have not done tons of work this week, but I did make progress on my hat. Because last week I had a concert, and during the time that I wasn't working, I was just knitting round and round and round on this. So you can see the color change from the white starting to get to the middle. I have a small amount of yarn left on it. And then I'm going to switch to this big old sucker and go hopefully all the way. I'm just going to make it big and long and see what happens. I don't know. That's what else I'm going to do with this pretty yarn. So it's going to, the other end will be this super dark color. So it'll be pretty. And so I've been working on that because I can take it with me. It's kind of convenient. I don't think I did a single stitch on, so that is a Musselburgh hat, sorry. And I don't know who made the pattern, I can look that up. But it's called Musselburgh, it's very popular, it's like one of those trendy knits. This is the Ocotillo shawl by Terry Neal at Tempe Yarn and Fiber. This is the photo I took last week, and I haven't done a single thing on it. But that's my complicated stitching, and I haven't had complicated brain this week. But I did work more on my aunt's sweater. This one I'll work on today, I think. So this is the 3 rectangles, 2 triangles cardigan by Very Pink Knits. This is the back. So I'm knitting all 3 pieces, as you remember, at the same time. And so I have a big tangled yarn ball mess. But it's nice. I'm really glad I chose to do it this way because it would be hard to like slog through it's just straight, It's knit purl one way on the front side and then purl back. And that can get tedious, and I know because I was making one for myself that I started on the back and was supposed to be counting rows so that I could then make the fronts the same. And I lost track, and I'm like, did I count that? And so I'm trying to count, and because it's this weird rib, anyway, I was never confident about the counting. And so I'm like, with this one, I'm going to make all of them at the same time. So I know that these are all exactly the same.
You know what that would work really well with another gradient like that, because if you have 3 separate balls for the gradient, because you would do them all at the same time, you would know that they were matching up.
Yeah. Well, no, not exactly, because the gradient would be thinner on this one because it's wide, and it would be the color changes would be wider on these because they're short.
But they would be
they
similar.
They wouldn't match, actually. Because that's what happened with like those sweaters I made for Hannah and her friend Jordan, because they were gradient yarns. They were like self-striping kind of. So the stripes on the body are very thin, and the stripes on the sleeves are very wide because they're shorter, smaller.
They still go together.
They still go together, but I think if it were a front and like 2 fronts and a back, and at the side seam, the color changes didn't. Now, if I was changing colors and actually making stripes, that would work very well because they would be exact. But yeah, no, so I'm working on this. I've made some progress. I feel good about it, but I need about 15 more inches, I think. That's what I measured last. So that's that. And really, I haven't done much else. I'm trying to think if I did any extra, like shopping or anything last week. I don't think I did. So that kind of boring me. But that is me.
We forgot to talk about what's up.
Oh, I didn't talk about that. I'll take this moment to talk
Take
about
that one over there.
Yes. So we talked last week about how we do have an Etsy shop. We don't talk about it a lot because Eve isn't actively making bags right now because her stuff is in storage. But we do have
My sewing machine is trapped.
Yeah, but we do have lots of inventory. So we have all of these. These are bags. I'm gonna stick around to the end. Right after we are done, I'll have a photo montage of all the different bags we have up here, so you can see them up
I
close.
have scissor fobs down there.
Oh, yeah, and also close-ups of the scissor fobs that probably you can't see on video. And this one didn't fit with the other theme, but this is a clear front project bag. It's so pretty. Reminds me of my mom.
It's a Mother's Day to me.
Yeah, and it has a little teapot zipper pull. All the zipper pulls have something fun on them. So these are all in our Etsy shop, and you can find the link in the description below. There's a link tree, and if you go there, you'll get to all of our related links. So we just have them on display because I really like this one. It's like a camping.
Yeah. There's a fishing one and a camping one. There's daisies and
the fishing.
Bunnies and
I really like the scissor fob
sea
with the
turtles.
Hobbit door.
Which scissor fob?
The scissor fob with the Hobbit door.
With the Hobbit door.
So I'm going to show pictures when we're done, a little montage of them as we exit out, so you'll see those close-ups then.
Yeah.
All right, your turn, Beth.
Me? Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot what order we were going in. I'm going to take this out of the hoop. I just discovered I wanted to change the pattern here. Actually, if you'll bear with me, I want to move this thread that I'm undoing. I'm unstitching. Move it in the back.
In knitting, we call that tinking. You're going backwards because knit backwards is tinked.
Uh-huh. As long as you're not tinkling.
Oh my gosh. Stop it.
Beth, really?
Stop it.
What the heck? Hang on, I'm just going to pull this in the back so I don't have a wad of thread in the front. Okay. Last week was the end of March, so I had, extra time. And so I worked a little bit more on my woodpecker, so I did all these tree trunks, and I started to do this tree, and I almost was able to finish it, but then it was April 1st, and so I stopped working on it. Because all that's left of this tree is just the leaves, and then, I'll be just more on the way. So my woodpecker is, it's coming along. Probably next time I work on it, whenever that will be, I'll be able to finish it maybe, because it's just the trees. And there's a big piece of, I guess, bark here under the woodpecker's feet. And there's a, big blob of bark underneath there. So I know I'm kind of far away, so you can't really see it, but there'll be a close up at the end.
All the time.
But so just a whole bunch of just little nitpicky, apart from that big piece of bark, just a bunch of little trees, and they're relatively easy to knock out, especially because all the ones on this side, I think I've done all the tree trunks. And it's just this one here I haven't done because it's so far down because of this big giant piece of bark. but so this was the tree I was working on, and I just got to the end of the thread, you know. But I've done like a lot of these little things. I did discover as I was doing this tree that this little, I don't know if it's supposed to be a little pile of leaves or something, that I got it off by one, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect anything. So I thought, what the heck. But then, so one of my April WIP-GO pieces is the barn owl. And I don't know if you remember, and I showed it last time. Oh, I'm looking at the back. I had just done the outline of the owl, and I had done all of this orange, all the orange stitching that you see on the owl. And so when I started, the inside was not filled in at all, except for this little swath of orange on the one side. When I started working on it, I did all the brown on the rest of the outline of the face, and all this brown on the body that I did. And I have a couple more days left in my 7 days, so I'll be able to finish this brown, all the brown sort of lacy looking stuff on his body. And then I think I'm going to work on, if I have any brown left, this is because this is the end of the skein that I have. And so, I don't know if I
I don't
have.
think I've ever used an entire skein of anything.
Well,
I've had
this skein for a long time.
I have.
But I've had this skein for a long time, so, but I don't know if I have another.
We have to go to the attic. You
Yeah,
can pick one up.
if I have another skein of this, so this is the end of the brown. But like I said, I've done a lot of the brown of the owl, so I'll just be able to finish, you know, these sort of outline of these lines on the owl's body, and then there's more brown in the tree that he's sitting on. There's a lot more, I think, on this side, and a little bit on the other side of his body. But actually, the bottom of his tail is the end at the bottom of the pattern, and the side over here is the edge of the pattern on this side. So, yeah. And I kind of want to work on more of the tree. And it's pretty simple stitching. It's a lot of black, a lot of brown. But one thing I thought I had. I think I do have it, but I think it might be in one of my patterns that's in storage or something, because the white on the owl's face, and there's some white, you know, in the body and all that, is the Weeks Dye Works color Grits, and I thought, you know, I have that color somewhere, I think, but when I was looking at my thread tracker, the patterns that it's in, either I have not started or they're ones that are in storage. So I was looking for the thread, and I didn't find it where I expected. So I think I'm going to pick up another skein of that just to make sure that I have it. But this is the orange on this thing is carrot. It's a Weeks Dye Works carrot, and the rest is all DMC. So, and I have most of those colors. So. Except for the brown that I'm running out of. So anyway, that's what I worked on this week, and I think I have, what's today, the 5th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have 2 more days, because I started it on the 1st. So I have 2 more days, and I'll be done with this. So I want to get as much of if I can get as much of the owl's body. There's like some blue in there, and I'd like to do that just because it's, there's not a whole lot of it, just sort of, you know, some of the little designs on his feathers or whatever. There's some, and I've discovered there's a couple places where, like, this brown on his body, right where that orange is in the middle, there's the little designs on his feathers follow a certain pattern. And so I was, going along and doing that. And then right when I got to the middle, I was there across these little lines of feathers. There's like sections there's like 3 stitches, and then you skip, and then there's 3 stitches and you skip, And so I was doing that, and I was going along, and I was so proud of myself. And then I realized, oh, at this point in the middle, it's only 2 stitches instead of 3. And then I thought, okay, I just circled on my, I have a working copy of the pattern. So I circled it and made a note, because I'm just gonna stitch over it with the orange when I get to that point. And so I thought, okay, I won't do that on the other side, but I did. So I'm like, okay, I'll stitch over that. So
It'll match.
yeah, there'll be a lump right there on both sides. The lumps will match. But so yeah, I do want to do some of the orange before I'm finished, so that I don't forget, because there's another place up here I noticed last time I worked on it that I forgot 2 stitches. So I want to make sure I put those in there, so before I get away from this pattern. But yeah, so it's coming along very nicely. I'm very, very pleased with the progress I've made on it. And so between the woodpecker and the bower owl, that's all I've done this week. Well, except that we are going to go to the attic after this, because the one pattern I was waiting for from Nashville, the pattern Afloat, which I will try to insert a picture here if I can find it. Because I don't have it yet, but that's where we're gonna go, so I can go pick it up today, along with some grits and some more DMCs and blah blah blah. So I was making a note actually on my phone of like all the threads that I need, because I think I put them in Thread Tracker, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so yeah, so I'm going to see what I can pick up at the attic as far as threads are concerned, and my one pattern that I'm waiting for. That's me.
Okay, so this is one of the projects that I'm concentrating on this month. This is Robin, Cute Patterns by Maria Bravko. She's on Etsy, and I just noticed she has another very cute fat bird. I just was telling myself, if you finish this, you can reward yourself with another fat bird.
And I said, all those birds over in Ukraine and Russia must be fat.
Yeah, so this is how far I am. Now, this pattern has unbelievable amount of threads and blends of the threads that are also there. So they're done without the blend and then with the blend. So yeah, that's going to take me a minute. And then I did have a new start. I started this He Is Risen, and it looks like it wouldn't, like this wouldn't fit, but I double checked the fabric. It looks square, but that's because across is wider than what it's supposed to be. But I'm like, that doesn't show up. I can't see it. And yet, when I look at it's on a light blue like that, and you really can't see it.
The lamb is, yeah.
Yeah, so actually I think mine shows up a smidge better than what's on that, but I don't know that I'm going to get very much further this month than what I've done, simply because I hate working on this fabric. I thought if I stitch with it in a hoop, that I would like it better. And I was very wrong.
No, didn't go.
I ended up taking it out of the hoop and then putting it back in, and taking it out, putting it back in. So, yeah. And then The other thing that I'm concentrating on this month, the other pattern, is Botanical Bee by Hands On Design. And I can't wait to finish this because I want to give myself permission to start on the Ladybug Picnic. So there's a reason why I stitched down like this. I'm like, oh, please don't let this be too close to the bottom.
Wow.
But I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And it only goes about that much further.
Okay.
So
Make
it'll
sure
be
you
all
have
right. Now, when you finish round things, just like, sorry, let me turn this off. When you finish in the round, it takes more fabric. So if I'm finding that I didn't leave enough leeway to finish round because I think I want to,
Yeah.
I'll probably just put extra fabric on the sides. I don't even have to machine stitch it on, just enough to where I can pull.
Mm-hmm.
But that's in the offing because I am not done yet. And I think I don't know if you remember where I was last time, but I had one little row of wing in white, and then just up to the bottom of that flower. So everything else I did
Yeah.
in the past 4 days.
Wow.
5 days, yeah, 4 days, because I
Let me see
haven't
the
worked on
pattern.
it today.
You see the picture, I mean. No, I see. It's so pretty.
Yeah, these were a big hit. This was a big hit last Nashville Needlework Market, and the Ladybug was this time too. So yeah, these have been very, very popular for her. When I saw this, when she was showing what she was gonna stitch for Nashville, I was like, I need that. I like bees anyway. Okay, I like to stitch bees. I don't want to be around bees. I have been stung by bees so many times. No. Bees are nice. Bees are fun. Just I don't want them around me.
May God bless and keep the bees far away from us.
I've been stung by a bee on my eyelid. I've been stung by a bee on my toe. I've been stung by a bee on my back. So
That's quite romantic, because I've only been stung by a bee on my butt. So.
Yeah. Which one of you had the bee on the butt thing?
That was me.
Yes.
the one
I've
on
never
my
been stung by a bee.
Well,
the one on my eyelid, it got in between my glasses and my eye and got upset and stung my eyelid. And I threw my glasses off. It was at a amusement park in Belgium. I threw my glasses off. And I thought my eyelid was going to swell like this, right? My ex-husband's like, why'd you throw your glasses off? I'm like, because the bee was trapped against my eye.
I should have thrown them at you. Oh.
I remember reading about 1 year during the Tour de France, one of the riders, because they're riding out in the open, he got hit in the face with a bee landed on it, hit him in the face, or he hit the bee in the face or whatever. But he got stung, and so he had to actually quit the race because it was either stitch with his eye all swollen up. Ride with his eye all swollen up, or
Or drop out.
take because the antibiotic or the what do you call it, anti-inflammatory stuff, whatever.
Antihistamine.
Yeah. In his what is one of the prohibited medications.
Or maybe it was
prohibited.
Maybe it's a steroid. Or something.
Yeah. And so they're not allowed to have it. So he said, he either had to get the sting treated or ride with this big swollen eye, and so he had to drop out of the race.
Being stung in the eye is no joke.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is my temperature chart designed by me under the C temperature chart. And while I was, like, last night I was trying to stitch. I didn't work on this yesterday morning, and then I went to work, and then we went grocery shopping, and we come back in 8 o'clock. I'm trying to start on this, and I'm going, and I just could not keep my eyes open to do it. So I ended up trying to stitch it this morning, so I hope it's right. But if you will notice these very hot days at the end of March and very cold days at the beginning of April.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had to go, when you're in Pattern Keeper, it does not show the back stitch. And I had to go back into the PDF and go, which way are those tails supposed to go? Do they go left? Do they go right? I purposely made them go different directions so that it looked like,
Mm-hmm.
But
Can I see it?
Singing schools of fish.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't realize it was sparkly fabric. It's nice.
I think of the ocean as being glittery. So, anyway, every morning for about 20 minutes, half an hour, I've been working on Stitching with the Housewives. Snowed in winter. And I'm getting there. So I have to finish the bottom of the snow globe and all these outer snowflakes. But as I was stitching yesterday, I said, maybe I should put snowflakes down here instead of winter.
Instead of the word winter.
Yeah. So if you have an opinion when you look at this, do you think I should put snowflakes down here? Now, they wouldn't be shiny like this. They would be, maybe I could do them shiny. They would just be opposite. Maybe I could do them shiny.
So would you leave that little base where it says winter, would you leave that off?
Mm-mm.
Or just put the base, put the snowflakes instead of the word?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, because I counted it and it fits. So that is me.
That's you?
Yep. We have been particularly unproductive this week.
Unproductive. Just busy. Just busy with life. And also focused on things. Like there's times when we're all like, we have 15 things. But then also, maybe this is good. Focused. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm kind of at heart, I guess, a monogamous
You're a
stitcher,
liar.
and so
You
I
keep
just
saying that, and
I'm very
I don't believe it.
like
I don't believe
just focused on one thing at a time in a way.
No, I don't believe it.
Well, but like I said, my goal is 7 days. So
Your
for those
entire
7
life
days, I work on
Okay,
on
well
that
that's
one thing.
focusing, but that's not monogamous because you have 50 million projects.
Yes. Well, like I said, one part of me is monogamous in that I will work on one thing at a time. Yeah. So
All right. It is time for
if
question.
it weren't for Flosstube, I would be a monogamous
That's
stitcher.
right. That's right. They ruined you. Speaking of which, it's time for question of the week. Last week we asked who are your favorite Flosstubers, and we had a couple of people chime in. One of them said that we were their favorite. We have Daybreak Stitchery, Gently Smiling Jaws. That's interesting. Mama Loves You GB.
I've heard that one.
Neat and Not by the Sea. And then, let's see.
What?
Jen the Caffeinated Stitcher, the Virginia Stitcher,
Yeah.
Garen Stitchery, Just Keep Stitching.
Yeah,
and
Gowan Stitchery is
Garon.
pretty. Yeah.
And then the Sunshine Stitchers. So it's a nice variety.
Yeah.
Garon is two guys, two names.
Oh.
Gary, I think it's Gary and I don't know, something like
Ron?
that. And Ronnie, something like that. I don't know.
So what are your guys' favorite floss tubes?
So,
Besides us, of course.
I do like watching Fat Quarter Shot Flosstube. Sometimes, I'm just like, just like you are with any floss tube.
Yeah.
But because they have a shop, she'll show all the new patterns like that she has in, like from Nashville, say.
Mm-hmm.
But even those that she just ordered something new,
Mm-hmm.
and you see stuff and go, I need that. And she shows her own stitching. Now, her aesthetic is very different from mine.
Yeah.
She's very pink. But I enjoy that. But that isn't my favorite. I think my favorite is Helen D.
Mm-hmm.
Hers are, she shows her whips, but she also has tutorials and,
Yeah.
variety of stuff.
That's cool.
And then two new ones that I just really love is Seashore Stitcher. She is so funny. She's the one that said, I made a trip to Frogtown. and I answered her once, not only did I make a trip to Frogtown, I bought a house. But also, there's a Flosstube channel of mother and daughter here in Scottsdale called Lost Our Needles. And I enjoy watching them. And then Emily, Shady Grove Stitcher, she's very, very new. And she does not stitch a whole bunch of projects. She stitches on one thing, but she's showing like some of her previous finishes. She's relatively new, like I said, some of her previous stitches. She also talks about finishing, and anyway, she's very interesting. And I watch Just Keep Stitching and, Stitching with the Housewives and stuff too, but I'm really, really enjoying Seashore Stitcher. And she likes shiny things just like me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
What about you, Beth?
I used to watch a lot of different channels. The Evertotes, Friday Off the Grid was one that I got into early on, and Just Keep Stitching, and Stitching with the Housewives. Things that I used to watch a whole bunch of channels, and then just little by little, I've sort of gotten not exactly lazy, but just because.
No one could call you lazy for not watching a YouTube channel.
But I mean, like, I watch Just Keep Stitching all the time. That's, one of my, Sunday, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're on. But I've gotten to where, and I watch Helen D now, because I heard Eve mention her a couple times, several times, and then but I had never watched her, and then once I started watching her, I'm like, I really enjoy her channel. I like her style or whatever, But but a lot of the other channels I used to watch, like there's a woman that was in Arkansas, Stitching by the Lake. I can't think of her name, her first name.
Stitch by the Lake.
She,
a lake.
Yeah, she lives in Hot Springs, Arkansas. But it's been a while since she posted videos, so I don't know. She had her brother had some health problems. Her I think various people that that she knew had some health problems or whatever. So I don't know finally what her situation is, because she hasn't posted in a while. I don't think. so I don't know. There were a few channels that I used to watch pretty regularly that either they haven't posted in a while or I've gotten out of the habit of watching them. So a lot of times I'll on YouTube I'll just hit like somebody's YouTube channel comes up and it looks interesting, and so I'll watch it, and I may or may not like it, or may or may not have the same taste in stitching designs and whatever. So I might watch a channel here or there and just sort of randomly. So I don't know that I've come across any new channels that I watch regularly, except for Helen D. Is relatively new to me, and things like that. So I'm just sort of random right now, random channels that I'm watching.
You are kind of random.
But but Just Think Stitching is one that I watch regularly. Yeah, so.
I'm just trying to think of the name of this. So most of my channels that I watch are, of course, knitting related. I watch a lot of instructors like Very Pink Knits and Roxanne Richardson. Roxanne Richardson has a great, what she calls a podcast, every Friday on YouTube, where she does like snippets. People will send her little yarn, knitting, fiber related news or interesting things, and she kind of covers that, and then she talks about what she's doing, and then so those are on Fridays, and then on Tuesdays she has Technique Tuesday. So so she'll do like a random technique, and actually that's the one I told you, a new way to start this hat. So that was from Roxanne. And then I watch a guy called Nimble Needles. He's from Germany, I think. I love his accent, and he has great technique videos. He doesn't really talk about his own projects. And then, but a couple of kind of a pot, like what you would call a Flosstube. I don't know what knitters call themselves. But is one young lady called Young Folk Knits. She's from Arkansas, I think. She's got that, she sounds like she's from Arkansas. I'm not sure exactly where she's from. And, but she has a video channel, but then she also has an actual podcast on Spotify that I listen to. And I listen to Very Pink Knits podcast as well. I like podcasts because I'm driving all the time. So then I also follow Arne and Carlos from Norway, who I love, and watch Barbara Knit is another lady. She's a designer, and she talks about, like, she'll find like 15 great hat patterns that she's found, or how to knit with gradient yarns. And so she's kind of a teacher, but she's also has a video what do you call them, channel, that where you can watch and stuff. So I do a lot of instructional, which is why I wind up going, I want to learn how to do that. I want to try that. I want to do that. It's a lot of fun.
There was somebody I watched, like, their Flosstube randomly, I guess, but they had like a whole they did, some cross stitching, but then they had like a whole bunch of knitting stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so we have the new question of the week. We've been talking. New question for this week. Please let us know what's in your Notions pouch. What are your favorite tools that you have besides your needles and thread and cloth? What do you keep? What kind of scissors do you like? Are you particular? Are you a scissor addict?
Scissor addict like me. I have a pair of scissors in basically every project.
So what are those things you keep? What kind of lotions do you have? Do you have a specific lotion that works really well for you? Do you have, what kind of like accessories do you need? I know with knitting you need tons, right? Like, I have a favorite little tool. I don't have it with me because it's in my little metal box, which I still haven't gotten no stickers for.
I'd like to know if they use a needle book, or if, like, I have a little magnetic thing where my needles are, but the problem is that I have to try to pinch it with my nails to get it out of there.
It's really a strong magnet. Yeah, so
No,
how do you
it's
keep your
just, it's too
needles?
deep for me
Oh.
to just grab it.
I
Yeah.
see.
So,
How do you keep your needles? I need a solution for that because I just kind of because when I finish that cross stitch, I'm like, what do I do with this?
Well, that's what I have. Like I have a needle minder on every project because I got there was one I had one project I had that did not have a needle minder handy. I just didn't have one on that project, and I was like, what do I do with the needle? And I was sticking it on the end
yeah,
of the
but
fabric until I went and my little box that you made me, and I had taken a needle minder off of whatever project I had just finished, and I'd stuck the needle on the back of it.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh look, there's a
How are your
but
boxes?
before you've put it on a project with a needle minder, where are they?
Where do you
Yeah.
put them? Do you have
Well, are they in the package that you bought them in?
That's where mine are.
I had a little tube, basically like a little square
Yeah.
plastic tube that had a bunch of needles in it, but it was very hard to open without like boing, from throwing the needles everywhere. So like, and then I had to pour it out and find a needle or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I had one of those little magnetic boxes where you slide the lid off and there's a bunch of needles in there. But I don't know, I found that it's easier for me to just stick a needle on the needle minder and stick it to the fabric and
Yeah.
Right, but what
and-
she's saying is, where do you store?
but when I
content?
store it, I just stick them on the needle minder.
Okay, but you have a brand new project.
Hmm?
You have a brand new project.
I look for a needle minder that has a needle stuck on it. Because I have them somewhere, in a project bag or here or there or whatever.
So you don't
And
have a
so-
central location.
No,
somewhere
I
that
just-
has them.
Yeah,
Just like for my scissors, I move them from one project bag to another.
Right. So, yeah.
Well, and because I don't really have like a stitching spot with all my with all my stuff.
I was wondering
you
how
know.
your boxes were going. Oh, Eve has to go respond to the puppy. I was wondering how your metal box is. How are you like that?
Well, like I said, when I was looking for a needle at one time, or I was looking for a pair of scissors, I guess, because I was starting a new project or something, and I thought, I don't have any pair of scissors, and so I went, aha, and so I went in there and opened up my tray and there's a pair of scissors, and things like that. So I'm trying to train myself to, when I'm finished with something to find a place for it in that
Yeah.
I was gonna put so the little metal needle thing I have it in my bag that has all my project bags. It's just floating around in there because the needles aren't going to come out.
Yeah.
And so when I want to start a new project, I know where the needle is.
Yeah.
You know, rather than fishing around for one.
What about your metal box?
The metal box, I was going to put stitching stuff in it.
Uh-oh.
I have glue and I have ribbon and I have,
Well,
and
as long
it
as
fits.
it's keeping your stuff.
Yeah, it fits in there. And I said, right now when I don't have access to like my thing where I had ribbons and
All the
stuff like that,
craft stuff, yeah.
it's nice to keep it there because the ribbons aren't all just going everywhere. I had planned to keep things like my needle box. What I really hate doing is when you're sitting there stitching and you decide, I'm going to start this, and you have your fabric and you cut it out and I don't want to have to get up and go get a needle. If I have all my stitching stuff here, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And my patterns, I keep my patterns I haven't started. I keep them other places. Except the Nashville ones, I have them all in a bag. I'm talking about last year and this year. 2 different bags, because those are the ones where I'm like, I think I really need to start that. I have been looking for fabric for that great big giant berry.
Oh, yeah.
The what?
The giant berry, the big berry.
Oh.
But that berry is going to be an investment because I don't possess any
Of the threads?
of the pearl cotton. And that's a fatter,
Thicker.
yeah. And
I don't know how much it costs at Hobby Lobby, but Hobby
I
Lobby
priced it, it's not bad.
Yeah,
But
it's a pretty good variety.
I pretty much need a lot of them for that. And one of them I need 2 skeins of it. But I really want to start that.
That's
So
cool. I have a metal box too. My friend was supposed to get me some gnome stickers and we haven't connected. So it's still just a cobalt box. But I have it by my chair where, I have, in Hannah's room I have all my craft stuff. But where I do most of my knitting is sitting in my chair. So I've got it there, and the bottom drawer is big enough to hold like my little bottle of lotion and, my box of stitch markers and my, and then the top one that's thinner is where I have like my scissors, my little fix-it tool, a pair of nail clippers. Do you have nail clippers in your pouch? I want to know, because at least with yarning, you have to keep your nails clean, and then an emery board, a ruler. What else do I have in there?
I have
A lot of stuff.
I have my nail clipper and all that in a drawer very close to me because inevitably I'm stitching and all of a sudden my nails are catching on all the thread or whatever, and I'm like, when did I break that nail? I was just sitting right here.
So I keep it there, and then it has that lift up lid. I put some gum in there.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. So, but not right now. My box, I can't lift up the lid because I put crap on it. So. I have a flat surface problem. So
Mine is in my closet, and so it was, sometimes I have to like, oh yeah, it's in my box, but I have one box of stitching things in the garage because when we were cleaning up for the showings and all that, some of the stuff went to storage and some of it is in there. That's like sort of uncommon stuff I don't need often. But then in that stitching box, I'm trying to put things in there, but it's in the closet, and so I have to like get up and go in the closet and look for whatever. But I have like because of my cats, I have like a bag that has this bag here that has all my project bags in it. And so I usually have that right beside my bed. But my one cat, Snug, for some reason, he like just he paws around in that bag and he knocks it over all the time. And I'm like, what are you doing? What do you want in there?
He just wants in there.
Yeah. Well, part of it is that I guess part of it is I think his mouth itches a little bit, and so he rubs his face on things all the time.
Yeah.
And so he loves the corners and edges of my project bags to rub his face on. But he's always like knocking that bag over because it's just kind of sitting there.
Why not? He's a cat. That's his job.
Yeah, and so some things I have in there, because that's most of my stitching stuff is in there. But yeah, he's
Anyway,
I want to keep it handy. But
So
one thing that
we're fascinated by because everybody finds a favorite tool they like. Like there's a tool where you can pull the thread through. You can do the trick that Beth uses, but there's all kinds of tools. But what do you put them in?
Yeah. How do you keep them near you? Yeah.
Well, and one thing also people talk about is like hoops versus Q-snaps, and what's popular now is what are called the Nurge hoops, and I'm always, every time the subject comes up in discussions that I'm following, whatever, I always talk about these Hobby Lobby hoops because they're A, inexpensive, and B, they have that little ridge in them that Nurge hoops have. And so, I found them a lot better than the previous plastic hoops that you used to see a lot that have like a lip
Yeah.
on them. And I tried those. I had a few of those, but I found that the fabric still slipped like it does with
I was afraid
wooden hoops.
I was afraid it would distort the fabric. That little tiny sharp lip would distort the fabric too much. I didn't like them.
Yeah, well, I started using these with the ridge on them, and you can kind of see hoop marks sometimes, but
That's normal.
with the good ironing, it's not really a problem. But I like these because it holds the fabric taut and the fabric doesn't really slip.
Yeah.
So that's one of my big hacks is using these hoops with a little ridge in them, and I have them in several sizes from the very tiny to the like 8-inch.
Well, your second collection after scissors.
Yes, my
Is
second collection is hoops. Yeah. So, but one thing that we were talking about lotions and stuff is a lot of people, like are hesitant to use certain lotions or whatever because you don't want to leave oils on your fabric and things like that. But you also don't want to have like dry, nasty, skin that grabs everything.
Spider-Man hands.
Spider-Man hands, yeah, where your hands.
You could pick up a thread with
Yes, yeah.
I can, there, in my box for drawing, for the classes, there's these towels, for lack of a better term, so that I can wipe stuff off of the whiteboards, right? I can pick them up like that.
Oh, they're microfiber?
I don't care how much lotion I have.
I hate those microfiber things. I can't. I can't touch them.
Yeah, but one thing that I discovered, because I have some Burt's Bees hand salve that I think Hannah gave to me one year for Christmas or something like that.
She loves Burt's
And
Bees.
I hadn't used them off and on, whatever. But I found that it's really good because I can I put it on my hands and then I use like stitching lotion on top of it. The Burt's Bees I feel pretty good about because it's basically beeswax. It's a little the salve is a little bit oily.
Is it sticky?
Not sticky, no. But it's a little bit greasy, I guess, kind of, you would say. But once it absorbs into my hands, it feels good. And then I just put like Stitcher lotion or some other lotion on top of it. And
I love, what is it? Gloves in a bottle? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Blue one?
Bottle. I really like that one.
but so the one thing I like about the Burt's Bees hand salve is that when I go to wash my hands or something, lotion, kind of washes off, if you will. But the Burt's Bees stuff kind of seems like it absorbs,
Stays better?
Stays longer, better, whatever. And it's especially important here, I think, in Arizona because the air is very dry and the water is very hard. And so when I first moved here, actually, after 25 years in Little Rock, the humidity there is very high and the water is fairly soft. And so, I could go without lotion a lot of times just because of the moisture in the air and, And then when I came out here, when I first moved out here, my hands were like paper. They were just awful.
Mine are always awful.
Yeah, and so that's one thing that I struggle with here is that my hands get very dried out and all of my skin, basically.
Yeah.
I remember one time I went, I don't know if it was to the doctor somewhere, or foot and ankle podiatrist person, something, and they're like, oh, your skin is very dry. Maybe it was the dermatologist. I don't know. I was like, yeah, I know. I'm very lazy about lotion on my I feel like I would need to put it on my whole body.
It's like C-3PO, just get lowered into a bath.
Yes, that's what I want. Yes.
Thank the maker.
Thank the maker. Lower me into a bath of moisturizing
Oh my gosh, it
fluids.
never ends. Yeah.
So I have a minor story.
Oh, yes.
We went grocery shopping yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had been working, my legs just did not want to work. I had been standing for, way too long. And I did not want to walk everywhere in the grocery store. So there were carts available. Had there not been, I would have walked. I would have cried, but I would have walked, right? So I'm riding in one of those carts. They're a little bigger than a regular shopping cart, not the basket, but the vehicle itself. There are some people that are so completely oblivious to the world around them.
Oh, no.
There was a woman, and her husband kept trying to get her to move out of the way, you know, but she's just... And she wasn't even looking at anything. She just kind of pauses and it's like... She had like 3 things in her basket, and everywhere I turned, I swear that woman was there. I'm like, why are you in every aisle? You're not putting anything in your basket, you know?
She's perusing.
She had a cantaloupe and like 3 other things.
I love looking at people's baskets.
And it was like, you're in the dairy area and not putting any dairy in your basket. You're in the area where the fruit is and the vegetables. None of that goes in her basket. But every time I tried to go somewhere, there she was. And it reminded me when we used to take Star Trek cruises. There was one where we called this woman Gotta Be First.
Yeah.
That woman, her head was in every photograph that I took. You know, she would shove herself in between you. If you were having a conversation with one of the actors that was on the ship, she would shove herself in between you to talk to him. Instead of waiting until you're done. It's not like they're going to sit there and have a hour-long, well, except for Walter Kenny, but a long conversation with you, you know, just wait. No, there she is, shoving her way in between. And I remember we were coming back from an excursion, and it was getting very close to dinner time, and they like you to be in there on time or you're going to end up eating at the buffet, right? So the people that were there at the tender to take us to the ship said, I want only people going to the first dinner to come up to the front. Only people going to the first dinner. She was way in the back until we went to get on the tender, and then she was right in front of me. and she did not have first dinner. It was the only place I didn't have photographs with her head in them.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of photographs on a cruise ship, I wish I had a copy of it now. I wonder if I should contact Mona and see if she has one. Or was Jan on that one too? I think so. There's an actor that is over 7 feet tall. And I am under 5 feet tall. And I went up to him and I said, I like taking pictures with myself with tall people. And so he spun me around and he put his hands on my shoulders and went like this. He wasn't even looking at the camera. He was looking down at me, and I mean, 2 feet taller than me.
I did that. Well, I didn't take a picture, but when I was working at this elementary school, one of the students had a dad who was a professional basketball player, and so he would come for like field day or whatever. And I'm right at 5 feet, and he was huge. So I said to my friend, "Hey, watch this." And he was just standing out there looking that way, and I just walked up to him and I looked at my friend who was standing right next to him. It's so funny. I like doing that.
Yeah.
Or like that picture where there's Kevin Hart and then some basketball player. I think it's Shaq. Maybe it's Shaq and Kevin Hart. And I'm like, Kevin Hart is, and he looks like a little tiny person, but Kevin Hart is still taller than me. I'm like, I wish I was in that picture.
Well, I used to watch the LA Lakers for a while, and there were several you would see on the camera. You would see what is that guy? He died in a plane crash.
Yeah, that helps you.
I can't think of his name.
No, that basketball player.
Yeah.
With his daughter.
Yeah.
Kobe.
Kobe
Bryant?
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah. And he was on the team with Shaquille O'Neal at the time. And so he looks like a little tiny guy. But when you see pictures of him with regular people, he's like really tall. Shaq is really tall.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, there were some pictures I used to, because I'm a big fan of Dave Duchovny, and that was one of the reasons I watched the LA Lakers, because he would go to the games a lot. And so there was a picture of David was sitting on the on the court, on the edge of the court, and David Duchovny is 6 feet tall, and he was sitting next to Shaquille O'Neal, and he looks like a child.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy. It's so funny on the way here. So, do you remember? I don't know if our viewers remember. A few weeks, maybe it was a year ago. No, maybe it wasn't that long. I don't know. In the not too distant past, I was coming here with the Cokes, and I got a traffic ticket. I got a speeding ticket. You remember that?
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "Man,
You can remember one ticket?
Oh, stop it. My most recent one, yes." Anyway, so it was on the Stretcher Road. We get the Cokes for this video there, and we drive down the same Stretcher Road every week, right? So this morning we pick up the Cokes and we're driving down. As we're at the light, right, we came right out of McDonald's. We're sitting at the light, and Eli turns to me and he goes, "If we're stopped by a cop, we're going to offer him a Coke as a bribe, right?" And I said, "Yeah, yours. I need mine for filming." So funny. And then, like, he's full of wit today. I was coming around the side of the car to get the tray of drinks from him so he could get out of the car easily. And right there's no sidewalk, and it's just the little curved curb like this and gravel. And my right foot's been hurting me. I don't know why. So it was like, my feet. And I picked up the Cokes, and as I was stepping backward, the gravel rolled under my foot. And I was like, oh, I almost fell right on my bum. And he goes, "Save the Cokes!" Like, cracking me up.
That's like in orchestra. Somebody I think you had a story where somebody like fainted or something, and the person next to him grabbed it.
No, it's one of my classmates. She fainted, and the person sitting next to her grabbed her bassoon.
Oh yeah.
So it wouldn't fall, but she fell.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had.
Yeah, but you can go to the doctor and fix it.
Yeah, your instrument.
Your instrument could be easily damaged.
Well, when I was in college, or maybe just after I got out of graduate school, I remember, there was a guitar instructor at the university, and he had, a guitar that he had had for years. And at one point, somebody, broke into his house, whatever, and stole the guitar. And so he had to get another one. And yeah, it was very difficult for him because, he was so used to that guitar that he had.
Oh, yeah.
And, to A, find another instrument that you like, and then B, get used to it.
You can't, it's very...
Do you remember in high school where somebody tripped and fell onto some instruments?
Yeah, when I was in youth symphony, there was a girl that, we went to break, and there was a girl who was a trombone player, and the cellists, very often, many of them would, instead of putting their cello like in a case or somewhere else, they would put it on its side beside their chair. And so she, instead of walking around, going behind the cello section, she walked through the cello section, and so she was stepping over the instruments, and she didn't pick her foot up far enough, I guess, and she caught the edge of this cello, and so it fell on its front, and then she fell on top of it and cracked it up the front and up the back. Destroyed it. Fortunately, it was insured because the kid who owned it was the son of a Felberg.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And so he had Mr. Felberg.
It was probably a nice cello, though.
Yeah, Mr. Felberg was one of the violin instructors at the university.
It wasn't like probably.
And he was in the symphony.
One of those, cheap. I was like, oh, it was probably just a cheap school.
No, it was a very nice cello, and fortunately, like I said, it was insured. But she was mortified, and he was furious, because.
What are you gonna say?
I was remembering one that happened at school. Because the flute was like bent like this.
Oh, no.
And it wasn't the only one damaged. Vicki, if you remember, could you let us know, because she was flute player with me. But I have a memory of that happening.
My daughter's friend at conservatory tripped on her pant leg. Like she had kind of like the long, wide leg pants, I guess, something. She was on stairs, and she tripped and fell and like destroyed her violin. And had to get a new one, and it was really hard.
It's different needing a repair.
No, it was. I mean,
but when you destroy something.
Yeah.
How long did she bowl?
I know. And it happened to Hannah's nice bow that she had. Mm-hmm. She had a pretty decent bow, and she dropped it and on a concrete floor and broke the head off. And we sent it to New York, and she was at camp, and not camp, but like a summer institute. And they said, we can repair it, but it will never be the same. So the insurance did pay out on that. And
when I was in college, I had bought my bassoon fairly early on in college, maybe my sophomore year, freshman year, I don't know. But at one point, I was in my lesson, and I had it standing on the floor, and I had a hold of it by the bell.
No.
And I took a step forward to fix my music on the stand or whatever, and so the bassoon leaned forward.
The bassoon is put together. There's a bottom part called the boot, and then there's two long parts, and then there's a bell that goes on the top. It's a super long. It's an instrument's about.
It's like 4 feet tall. Because like if I'm 5'2", and if I'm standing up, I could just put my chin on the bell.
So that's how long it is. To put it in context.
Yeah. So I was standing there, and like I said, I took a step forward to move my music or something, but I was standing up.
Were you in Artemis' studio?
Yes, I was at my lesson, and my teacher was in there, and I don't think I had the vocal on it. I think I just had the instrument. But as I took that step forward, the instrument, like the bell, slipped off, and it fell on the foot of the stand, and it fell like where the boot goes into the other two joints or whatever. And fortunately, it didn't ruin it or anything, but it like left a mark or something on the bell. And my teacher was like, and I was mortified that I had done this in front of my teacher.
I did worse, and thank God my instrument did not suffer anything bad.
Do you remember when he was attacked?
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to steal from his house.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, our teacher, they had an intruder, and they tied him up, and they hit him, right?
No, they didn't tie him up. His son played the violin. His son, took violin in school. He wasn't professional.
He was tied to a chair.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't.
British.
No, he was They told him to face the wall, and then they hit him.
Yeah.
But he was not tied up. No, but he was like taking a nap, and he came out from his room because I don't know if he heard something or whatever. But he came out and he saw his son's violin case like sitting on the floor, and so he thought his son had come home from school and had left his instrument there. And, he was going to scold him or whatever. And as he came like toward the door, he could see his bassoon case sitting on the floor, and then he knew something was wrong, and so he came out, and there were these two guys in his house, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And so when they saw him, they immediately made him like turn and face the wall so he couldn't see them.
He was a little frail old man.
Yeah, and he was like saying, take whatever you want, just do not take the instruments because you'll never get what they're worth or whatever.
Right.
And fortunately, they did not take the instruments, and they hit
But they
him.
pistol whipped him, right?
They hit him in the face or something because I think they broke his jaw or his cheekbone or something.
If they had taken the instruments, they would have been caught.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
they would have to pawn them.
Yeah.
For what,
Yeah. So what you would
so
definitely
you take them over to a pawn shop and they're like,
yeah.
you own these.
Well, even if they had been able to sell them from a pawn shop, you would not get because Artemis' instrument was like worth probably more than $10,000. I mean, very much, and you would never get that much from a pawn shop. You would get maybe $1,000 or something like that. As a matter of fact, at the university, one of the university bassoons was stolen, and Artemis and one of his students, a guy I went to school with, Dennis, they went and they were like looking at all the pawn shops because I think the campus police, couldn't really. It's a weird jurisdiction between the campus police and the city police, whatever. And so Artemis and Dennis were basically looking in every pawn shop.
But
and so they found the instrument at the pawn shop, at this one pawn shop, and the pawn shop, I guess, had paid a certain amount for it.
Even though it probably had university serial numbers all over it?
Yes, it did. And so they were able to identify it, but they had to buy the instrument from the pawn shop because of this weird jurisdiction thing. And so they ended up, buying the instrument back from the pawn shop for a few $100 or something.
That pawn shop had a lot of nerve because they could have been forced to give it back.
Yeah. And so, but, like I always used to say, if you want a bassoon, you can either have a bassoon or a car, but you can't have both because they're basically that expensive. And even the cheap ones, like, the one I have is an inexpensive instrument, but it's probably worth, I don't know, $20,000, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. To buy new now, yeah.
Yeah, and if I have my instrument. I didn't pay that much for it because back in the day it wasn't that expensive. But I had a student when I was in Little Rock who her parents, I don't know, they were rich, were looking to buy her an instrument, and they were looking at one very similar to mine. And it was a lot more expensive, in those days. And again, it's not a high-end instrument. It's a fairly cheap, basically student model kind of thing. And if you want a professional model, they're, I don't know, $30,000 or something like that. They're very, very expensive.
Which is why I would believe that Mr. Higgins kept going into the band room to rescue instruments.
Yeah, one of our childhood.
My dad's elementary school band director.
He ran a music school and he was burned in a school fire because he kept trying to go rescue.
He kept going.
He
in
was
and
very
getting
badly
instruments.
burned.
Yeah.
But he survived and taught music forever.
Mm-hmm. I remember he played horn, and I remember he had, because his hands were burned. So
actually that was, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know about maybe on his face, but his fingers, that was not what it was.
Oh.
I believe that, and now that you said that, it reminded me, because I asked him when I was there to write that hummingbird story about the music camp. I asked him what happened, and he said that when he was little, they had a tortoiseshell comb, that they would make, I guess, a plastic tortoiseshell kind of combs. And I think the plastics probably weren't as stable maybe as they are now. As you know, if you put a foam in the fire, I mean, it's going to melt, but it's not. I think, well, anyway, he was playing with it as a child and he put it in flame and it melted onto his hands. That's how his hand got messed up.
Wow.
When he was little.
And he still managed to play an instrument.
Yeah.
Now, I think the fire story probably was true, but I don't think that's how his hands got messed up.
No,
because he told me that story. I remember, now that you said that. But I was going to say, talking about doing bad things to instruments. I was in college at the university in New Mexico, and I was in a pit orchestra. And or maybe it was like Civic Light Opera or something. And I was right up against the wall of the pit. And the floor of the pit would raise and lower. And because of that, it wasn't like a solid floor. And when you were sitting on it and people were walking on and off from the platform into the back of the pit, you could feel the platform, shift. And I knew that. But I didn't have a stand at that time. A bassoon stand. So, because it's really long, and so if you put it across your chair, you're putting it across two chairs, right? And you don't want to put it on the floor necessarily. But I could have on the floor because there was a wall and no one was going to step on it. Yeah. But I had to put it down. I had to go back to get something. And I think that if I remember my memory right, I did this to my own horn. I put it. So I used to, when I was lazy, stand it on because there was carpeting on the pit floor, so it wouldn't slide. So I would put the boot there on the carpet and lean the thing up against the wall of the pit. And it would, when I was doing stuff, I would just do that. So stupid. And I did that, and I was going to go out to the back to my case, or I don't know what. So I walked through, and it was before rehearsal, and no one was there, or a few people. And I walked through like this, and as I stepped off the pit, the floor shifted, and my horn went honk. I was mortified. Oh, it was like forever embarrassment.
Well, did you try to destroy any instruments when you fell into the pit?
I did. Yeah. I tried to destroy a whole circle of violins and a flute. But the people I played with were much smarter. So that story, I probably told it on here before, but I was playing in an orchestra in Boston in a very old theater that it did not raise and lower and was very small. And the pit was extremely deep. So they had built a platform at the front of the pit, and then we had musicians on a lower platform. And the reason they built that platform was so that the conductor could see over the edge of the lip of the stage, so they could see the production, right? It was opera. And the way the wall of the pit and the stage lip was like a crescent moon. So it was shaped like that, and my chair was right here in the corner of that upper platform with the other woodwinds, I guess. We were up there, and they had strings and stuff down in the lower pit and the timpani. And because they didn't care about any of us, the platform was just, bare wood, and then it had a staircase coming down to the lower part. The staircase did not have rails, and the platform did not have rails. So any of us could have just tumbled down. And the lip of the stage, that crescent, the lip of the stage and the platform was such that in order to go down those stairs and not hit your head, and I'm only 5 feet tall, you had to bend in half to go down the stairs with your instrument. So for this production, I was orchestra manager, student orchestra manager, which means I make sure everyone's in their seat, I keep track of attendance, and at breaks, I make sure they come back, right? And let everybody do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. And this was a performance, and it had 2 intermissions. So first intermission, we're there, and I was standing on the platform talking to one of my friends who was attending. It was Fledermaus, by the way. And I love that opera. Anyway, and while I was talking to them, I saw the red light was flashing. And I was like, oh, I gotta go. So I was gonna go to the back where everyone was congregating and say, the light's flashing, time for the next act. And as I was going, fortunately I didn't have my instrument in my hand, I bent in half to go down the stairs and somehow stepped between the edge of the platform and the stair, like stepped right there. And fell, I don't know, I lost my footing. And I tumbled and barked my shin on the stairs, and as I was flying, I grabbed a chair. It seemed far, I don't think it was that far, because I didn't break anything. I hurt my leg and I was all bruised up, so maybe it was only 3 feet, I don't know. Well, I fell, and I grabbed a chair on my way down, and on the chair, in a bag, in its case, was a flute. So the flute was fine. But as I fell, there was a little room of stands, and I flattened all the stands like this. And that was where all the violins were sitting, but fortunately they had taken their violins with them. There were no instruments there. But it was funny because the back of the pit had 2 doors, and one door was over here, and there was a circle of timpani. So the timpani player was warming up. But because he was, he could only go in and out his door, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So he saw me falling, and he was like, And I got up. I was like, I'm not dead. Okay. And I went back, and I was like, time for the second act. And everyone knew I'd fallen and everything, and they were being very nice. But, show must go on. So I go back up the steps, and I sit down, and I, the second act had like a, little overture or whatever. And I don't even know when in this, I was just sitting there, and I'm like, now I'm starting to hurt. And I'm throbbing, and I'm like, so much pain. And the conductor knew I had fallen. And he was a pill. He knew I'd fallen. But I'm trying to be oriented to what happened. And I didn't hit my head or anything, but I was still, in pain and freaked out.
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah. And at some point, I don't know if it was in the entr'acte or in the music itself, whatever, I had a little, one of those little, who wrote Fledermaus? Weber?
I don't know.
Anyway, one of those little
somebody famous.
Opera solo, little bassoon, it wasn't like a big long solo, it was just a little,
exposed
thing. And I missed it. So I'm like, and he looked at me. And I went.
I just fell.
Leave me alone. While I'm sitting here. Second intermission, I went downstairs very carefully. I went to the back, and I got on the phone with my now husband, who was just my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, I fell in the pit. And he goes, that was stupid. And somehow I still married him. That's the story.
When I was in
red flag.
When I was after graduate school.
He regrets it. He's sorry he said that.
After graduate school,
I've made him sorry every year since.
When I got I went back to town, and for the next 4 years I was taking auditions everywhere. But so during that time, the university I think did not have a bassoon major there, and so my teacher had asked me if I would play with the university orchestra, and and so speaking of operas, we were doing Carmen, and we were in the Pope Joy pit, which is the one that goes up and down, and but they had by the time I was there, they had these big heavy-duty stands, big metal stands that had a heavy bass, and then they had like a little tray thing, which was nice, and then they had a huge desk thing and built-in lights.
Oh, nice.
And so So that's what we were using. But in that pit, I guess there were metal strips, I don't know, before the floor was put together or something.
Or for
But
for the cords.
Yeah. So, but these metal stands were on there, and somewhere there was like a short, I guess, or something, because we were playing during one. I don't know if it was the overture or the entr'acte at intermission or whatever, but like sparks started going across the floor, and so everybody was like, "Ugh!" We're trying to keep playing and everything, and some technician guy was there crawling around on the floor trying to find what was shorting out or whatever. It was very scary because we were trying to keep playing, and
in that same hall, I played Brigadoon one year, and if you know the story of the show, the town of Brigadoon shows up once every million years, for a few days, and then of course the two people fall in love, and then the town's going to go away, and that's the premise. But it shows up out of the mist, so there was all this dry ice mist happening, and at the very beginning when the town showed up, here comes all the mist, and guess who was right under the lip of the stage? It was me,
because it's heavier than air, so
yeah, it just would go down. And it has a smell, and I can still kind of smell it in my mind. But it would go down because we were used to that, because they used a lot of the misting systems during these operas, but in those shows. But this time it would come down because it was like this huge rolling mist. It would come down over the stage between me and my stand, and I had to literally memorize that part of the music because I couldn't see my stand. It was just like cloud, and I'm trying to breathe this stuff. Like, is it safe for me to breathe?
When I used to do.
It was cold.
Yeah,
cold.
I used to do civic art opera in that pit, and this is after graduate school again, and so I was doing. We were doing, what do you call it, Man of La Mancha, and so. It's kind of like the first time we did that production when I was in college, the orchestra was off stage because they have to have like what do you call it?
A joust?
No, what do you, not the basement, but like a under,
cellar.
Yeah, kind of like, where the prisoners were or something, and they pull the prisoners up.
Dungeon.
Yeah. And so usually, because that's in the pit, they put the flooring over the pit, and they put a trapdoor there, and they, go down in there to pull the prisoners out or whatever. But so.
Oh, I see.
So in this production, they used the pit, but they had like a little staircase thing for that underground part. And so the actors would go up the stairs, like on the edge of the orchestra. So the guy that played Sancho Panza, the Man of La Mancha's friend or whatever, was down under there waiting to go up. And in this particular scene, there's a fight going on up there. And so the orchestra's playing the fight music, and the actors have like these rubber knife things that they're like stabbing at each other with. And one of the actors dropped his knife and it fell into the pit. And because I was sitting right by the staircase, it fell down there and it hit me in the arm. And, it, even though it was a rubber knife, it poked me. And so I'm trying to play Cuba. And so then like, didn't have, whatever, they faked, their way through it or whatever. The knife falling didn't make a whole lot of difference.
Was it performance or rehearsal?
Yeah, it was a performance.
Yeah, of course.
And so from then on, every time the Sancho Panza guy, because he was waiting during the fight scene, waiting to go up the stairs. And so he would always stand like this, waiting, to protect me from a falling knife. It was very funny.
Okay, so I'm doing an informal survey. You were in an orchestra for how many years?
25.
Okay.
When I was little.
In the time that you performed on stage in professional performances, did you ever witness, or did anybody sneeze during a performance? Like a
No.
soloist, an orchestra member?
No.
What I believe anecdotally that there's something in your nervous system that prevents you from sneezing when you are in a high stress performance. Because I have, and I asked Peter, have you ever seen anybody sneeze in your long tenure as CEOs of, and he's like, I don't think I have. And so I'm starting to ask people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends says, yeah, well, yeah. And I'm like, oh, a soloist? No, not a soloist. He goes, I did. I'm like, you're not. Anyway.
But no, the one thing I did was one time in rehearsal for a performance, I was kind of sick, and I had a little coughing fit during rehearsal, and the conductor gave me the evil eye because I was dared to make noise of coughing during this. It was like a quiet solo thing, or whatever, for the strings or something. And like I said, he gave me the evil eye. So that night before the night of the performance, I took cough medicine. I was like, I am not going to cough during this performance.
Well, yeah. Well, coughing is one thing because you can kind of control coughing.
Yeah.
More than you can. I mean, you can kind of stifle sneezes, but I mean, like.
As far as I know, I don't think anybody.
Think about it.
In the 25 years that I did it.
I'm gonna get grant money and do a research.
We should.
Yeah.
We should finish up. I think we've been talking for 2 hours.
Not quite. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks
Stay for the.
Oh yeah,
video.
stay for the montage of photos for these beautiful bags that you can get at our Etsy shop. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to our goofball stories, and we will see you again next week.
And don't forget to tell us your answer to the question of the week about your
what's in your
favorite stitching stuff.
What's in your wallet? What's in your notions pouch? Talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Right.
Bye.